How hard was the journey for you?
Well, it was comparatively easy, but I never stopped. My father said I was like having 3 boys. And I think that's what it takes, a lot of energy and a lot of concentration.
Connie Stevens was never just a movie star. She is one of the last living witnesses of a Hollywood intoxicated by glamour, yet steeped in shadows. From a Brooklyn girl scarred by childhood trauma, at 12, she saw a man murdered before her eyes. Connie stepped into the dream factory and was quickly hailed as a blonde bombshell, a sex kitten of American cinema. But that glow was always laced with bitterness. On television, she became iconic as Cricket Blake in Hawaiian Eye, the image of youthful beauty and energy. On stage, her voice carried 16 Reasons onto the Billboard charts. Off-screen, however, she endured a string of violent marriages, infidelity, and addiction, eventually raising 2 daughters alone amid the chaos of Hollywood. After 6 decades, Connie remains standing, not with the pride of a star, but with the resilience of a survivor who weathered every storm life hurled her way. Today, in her 80s, seated in a wheelchair in assisted living, she is no longer the glamorous sex symbol, but a living testament to the price of fame, where beauty and stardom can never erase the tragedies of real life. Let us retrace Connie Stevens' journey from the blinding lights of the stage to the lonely shadows of her later years to understand why her story still sends chills whenever her name is spoken. Early life. Connie Stevens, born Conchetta Rosalie Ingoglia on August 8, 1938 in Brooklyn, New York, came into the world within a family steeped in music. Her father, Peter Ingoglia, known in the jazz world by his stage name Teddy Stevens, was a drummer who toured nightclubs, while her mother, Eleanor McGinley, was a singer with a warm, resonant voice. The little girl grew up surrounded by the beat of drums, cigarette smoke, and the swaying moods of jazz. Yet beneath that seemingly glamorous foundation lay a painful truth, a family that fractured early. When Connie was only 8, her parents separated. The shock tore away her sense of family and sent her to a Catholic boarding school. Within those cold walls, she learned discipline and self-reliance, but also endured a numbing loneliness. Each night she longed for her mother, for the sound of her father's drumming, but all she had was the harsh silence of the dormitory. The real trauma struck when she was 12. On a Brooklyn street, Connie accidentally witnessed a brutal murder. The sight ripped apart her childhood, leaving her nearly mute, withdrawn, and traumatized. Her family realized that if she stayed in New York, her spirit, and perhaps her life, could be destroyed. A painful decision followed. Connie was sent away to live with family friends in Boonville, Missouri, a small, quiet town worlds apart from Brooklyn's chaos. Boonville offered safety, but it could not erase the haunting images burned into her memory. In the thin, fragile girl lingered fear and loss. The only thread tying Connie to the world was music. She sang whenever she could, in class, on the playground, in church, treating music as her only escape from the nightmare. By age 15, a new chapter began. Connie left Missouri and moved to Los Angeles to reunite with her father. The city was then the beating heart of Hollywood, a land of surging artistic dreams. There, Conchetta Ingoglia shed her old self and embraced the name Connie Stevens, taking her father's stage surname both as a tribute to her musical roots and as a way to grant herself a fresh start. Her turbulent teenage years, divorce, boarding school, witnessing violence, and exile to Missouri, had already reshaped her. They forged a Connie who was stronger, more determined, yet marked by a deep inner fracture. That fracture, combined with her innate musical talent, gave birth to the unique magnetism of Connie Stevens, fragile yet vibrant, a paradox the audience would one day see on both stage and screen. Early career. After a turbulent childhood, Connie Stevens began seeking refuge in music, a path that would eventually open the door to America's harsh entertainment industry of the 1950s. This was the era of exploding youth culture, when rock and roll and teen rebellion films dominated the scene, and Hollywood desperately searched for new faces who could both sing and act to capture the growing teenage audience. Connie first joined The Foremost, a vocal quartet with 3 men and 1 woman. Though the group lasted only briefly, its 3 male members would later form The Lettermen, one of the most beloved pop groups of the 1960s, known for their sweet ballads. This detail reveals how Connie once stood on the edge of a major pop phenomenon. Even if she didn't follow that path with them, the experience gave her valuable lessons in harmony and stage performance. Soon after, she replaced the alto voice in the all-girl group The Three Debs, gaining more confidence on female-centered stages and learning how to carve out a presence in an increasingly crowded market of young voices. From music, Connie quickly made her way into Hollywood, where studios were churning out films in bulk and needed new starlets for supporting roles. In 1957, she appeared in small parts in Young and Dangerous and 18 and Anxious, films that tapped into hot-button themes of teenage rebellion and unplanned pregnancies, both urgent social issues in America at the time. These roles weren't enough to make Connie a star, but they placed her in front of cameras, taught her the rhythms of a film set, and gave her exposure on the big screen during a boom in youth-centered movies. Thanks to these steps, Connie secured a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures, with a starting salary of $600 a week, set to rise to $1,500, a dream paycheck for a young actress. Yet Hollywood was nothing if not ruthless. Within a short time, Paramount unexpectedly dropped her, dismissing her as lacking box office appeal. What could have ended her career before it even began, instead forced Connie to reinvent herself without relying on the security of a major studio. The turning point came in 1958 when she caught the eye of Jerry Lewis, then one of the most bankable comedians in Hollywood. He noticed her after a cameo in Drag Strip Riot, a low-budget action film about biker gangs and violent clashes, a popular youth trend at the time. Though her role was fleeting, Connie's on-screen spark impressed Lewis enough to cast her in Rockabye Baby, a remake of The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, 1944. While Jerry played the lead, Connie was given a supporting role. It wasn't large, but her lively, charming performance and natural singing voice stood out. Hollywood began to take notice. Stories from the set recall Jerry Lewis praising her as having a face that lights up the screen, a comment that acted as her golden ticket to being seen as a rising prospect. That same year, Connie released her debut album, Conchetta. Though not a commercial smash, it proved she was more than just an actress who could sing. Tracks like Blame It On My Youth and Looking for a Boy carried a youthful ballad quality, fragile, tender, and perfectly aligned with the image audiences craved. A girl both innocent and yearning for love. Together with her screen presence in Rockabye Baby, the album cemented her as a multi-talented performer, exactly the kind of cross-media star Hollywood executives wanted to mold. The early years of Connie Stevens' career were marked by sharp highs and lows. The golden promise of a Paramount contract abruptly shattered, a string of nameless minor roles, and then an unexpected boost from Jerry Lewis's discerning eye. Yet this trajectory underscored a truth. Connie was no mere product of luck. She was an artist who seized even the smallest opportunities to break forward. In the cutthroat male-dominated world of Hollywood, where young women without powerful backing often faded away, Connie's persistence revealed what would define her entire career: adaptability, resilience, and a keen instinct for connecting with young audiences, an instinct she had carried with her ever since her own storm-ridden youth. Career success. If her early years only introduced Connie Stevens to audiences, the real turning point came at the end of the 1950s, when Hollywood was reshaped by the explosion of television, the rise of youth-oriented music, and Warner Brothers' push to create multi-talented stars who could both sing and act. Stevens fit perfectly into this strategy. After her small roles in drag strip Riot, she was steered toward television. Within just a few years, the role of Cricket Blake in the series Hawaiian Eye, 1959 to 1963, made her an icon. At a time when detective series often felt stiff and formulaic, Cricket arrived like a breath of fresh air, a nightclub singer and photographer who was funny, sensual, and independent, qualities that young female viewers saw reflected in themselves. Warner Brothers cleverly wove Stevens' songs into episodes, turning her character into a built-in vehicle for music promotion. This acting plus singing formula gave her simultaneous success on both screen and the charts. Her duet, Kooky, Kooky, Lend Me Your Comb, with Ed Burns in 1959, soared to number 4 on the Billboard charts, becoming a pop culture phenomenon. A year later, 16 Reasons climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and even crossed into the UK market, freeing Stevens from being seen solely as a TV personality. The album As Cricket, released around this time, reinforced the connection between her TV persona and her real-life career. With her bright, playful voice, perfectly aligned with early 1960s teen pop, Stevens became a youth idol frequently compared by the press to Sandra Dee and Connie Francis. Not confined to music and television, Warner Brothers also placed her in a series of youth-oriented films: Parish, 1961, Susan Slade, 1961, and Claudel English, 1961. These melodramas reflected Hollywood's obsession with stories of love, youth, and family tragedy. Alongside Troy Donahue, Stevens was expected to extend the popularity of the teen romance formula. Claudel English, in particular, was seen as an attempt to push her beyond the blonde doll stereotype, casting her as a small-town girl caught in tragedy, proof of her serious intent as an actress. Although these films didn't provide the breakthrough she hoped for, they demonstrated that Warner still regarded her as a central player in their youth market lineup. When Hawaiian Eye ended, Stevens sought new ground to prove she was more than just a TV star. She took a rare foray into suspense with Two on a Guillotine, 1965, showing her willingness to step outside her comfort zone. Though the film wasn't a major hit, it reinforced her desire to be taken seriously as an actress, beyond the sex kitten label the press frequently pinned on her. As her big screen opportunities narrowed, Stevens demonstrated her staying power on stage. In 1967, she debuted on Broadway in Neil Simon's The Star-Spangled Girl. This was a crucial milestone, as Broadway rarely embraced Hollywood crossovers. Her performance earned her the Theatre World Award, proving she was not just a television product, but a capable stage actress. The success arrived at the right time, validating her depth in an industry where younger stars were flooding in. Through the 1970s and 1980s, Stevens shifted toward television movies and series, a growing trend of the era. She appeared in Love's Savage Fury, 1979, Scruples, 1980, Aloha Paradise, 1981, Sideshow, 1981, and Harry's Battles, 1981. While none were groundbreaking, they kept her presence consistent. On the film side, she resurfaced with Grease 2, 1982, a sequel unable to match the original, but still a reminder of her name to audiences. Later in the decade, she appeared in Back to the Beach, 1987, a nostalgic tribute to surf music and 1960s pop culture that indirectly reaffirmed her roots as a star of that earlier era. Stevens did not stop reinventing herself. In 2009, at the age of 70, she directed Saving Grace B. Jones, an independent drama set in the 1950s and featuring Tatum O'Neal. While not a commercial film, it underscored her lifelong commitment to artistry and her ambition to be recognized as a filmmaker, defying both age and industry expectations. If Connie Stevens spent her early career struggling to find her place, this phase cemented her as one of Hollywood's rare multi-hyphenates, a familiar television actress, a pop singer with enduring hits, a Las Vegas and Broadway performer, and even a director. What defined her success was not one great role or one hit album, but her relentless ability to endure and reinvent herself across entertainment mediums. At a time when Hollywood granted few women such opportunities, Stevens proved she could rise above the sex kitten label and establish herself as a talent with lasting versatility. Personal life. At the height of her career with Hawaiian Eye and her teen pop hits, Connie Stevens' romantic life became a hot topic in the press. In the early 1960s, Hollywood, where the public was endlessly fascinated by the private lives of young, glamorous stars, Connie, with her voluminous blonde hair and sweet smile, was quickly branded a sex kitten, a blonde bombshell, in the mold of Marilyn Monroe. This label meant that audiences and tabloids often paid more attention to her rumored affairs than to the artistic efforts she was striving to pursue. The most famous of these was her brief involvement with Elvis Presley. While filming Hawaiian Eye, Connie received a surprise call from the king of rock and roll himself. Elvis was captivated by her youthful beauty and invited her to a private party. They went on a few casual dates, and Connie was even serenaded by Elvis in front of his circle of friends. Though the relationship never blossomed, it became a detail the press eagerly sensationalized. In later years, Elvis was often portrayed as the man Connie could never have. Beyond Elvis, Connie's name was linked with a string of Hollywood A-listers: Jerry Lewis, her co-star in Rockabye Baby, Dean Martin, the suave Rat Pack icon, and Glenn Ford, the veteran heartthrob of the silver screen. Most of these connections were little more than rumors or the result of being seen together in public once or twice. Yet for the media of that era, such fleeting moments were enough to paint Connie as a golden-haired goddess, constantly pursued by the industry's most powerful men. In reality, the excessive focus on these ambiguous relationships often overshadowed the professional ambitions Stevens pursued relentlessly. Whenever she attempted to take on more serious acting roles, critics were quick to dismiss her, labeling her as just a pretty face, sustained by scandal and the glow of male attention. In many ways, this was the price Stevens paid for stepping into Hollywood during a period when female stars were boxed into sexy archetypes rather than recognized for their true talent. After her fleeting romances with Elvis Presley, Jerry Lewis, and Dean Martin, more fodder for tabloids than real connections, Connie Stevens longed for something different. She craved an anchor, a relationship that could bring stability after years of being dismissed as a sex kitten whose only claim was dating leading men. It was during this time that she met James Stacy, a young actor with less fame, but with striking looks and a bold personality that easily attracted women. Their meeting is said to have taken place at Hollywood parties where Warner stars and TV personalities mingled. And from the start, Stacy was captivated by Connie's charm and innocence. Their romance ignited quickly. At the height of her popularity, Connie appeared publicly with James, and the press dubbed them Hollywood's new golden couple. They walked hand in hand on red carpets, flashing radiant smiles, embodying the image of a love story straight out of the movies. In 1963, at just 25 years old, Connie married Stacy in a wedding celebrated as the fairy tale union of the screen sweetheart and the rebel actor. But the dreamy glow soon shattered. James Stacy was not the tender, romantic figure the press painted. Beneath the surface lay jealousy, volatility, and a need for control. Connie, adored by audiences as a rising star, became the target of his outbursts. In one shocking incident while she was asleep, Stacy grabbed scissors and hacked off her famous blonde hair, an act meant to humiliate and possess her. On another occasion, in a jealous rage, he gathered childhood photos of Connie, treasured mementos from a fractured childhood shaped by her parents' divorce, and set them ablaze. These acts not only inflicted deep pain, but also reopened wounds Connie had carried since childhood: loss, insecurity, and a hunger for love that always seemed out of reach. 3 short years of marriage to James Stacy became a daily struggle of mounting tension. On the red carpet, they smiled like a picture-perfect couple, but behind closed doors were endless arguments, suffocating silences, and the psychological violence of living with a man consumed by control. They had no children together, an absence that cut Connie deeply, as she was at an age where she longed for a family, but faced only the wreckage of a broken marriage. By 1966, Connie filed for divorce. To the public, it looked like another dramatic Hollywood breakup. Only years later did details of Stacy's controlling and abusive behavior emerge, revealing that Connie had endured a kind of private hell. Ironically, James Stacy's life later spiraled into tragedy. In 1973, he suffered a horrific motorcycle accident that claimed his left arm and leg and killed his girlfriend who was riding with him. Though he managed to return to acting and even earned Emmy nominations, he could never escape the shadows of psychological trauma and personal scandal. From a distance, it seemed Connie had narrowly escaped an even darker fate had she stayed in the marriage. For Connie Stevens, her marriage to James Stacy was not just a wound, but a brutal lesson in the illusions of Hollywood glamour. A love story that had seemed sweet and promising left her with lingering insecurity. Emerging from her first marriage, she carried scars the public could not see, hidden beneath makeup and studio lights. And before she had a chance to heal, she entered her second marriage to Eddie Fisher, where the storms would rage even fiercer, plunging Connie into some of the most turbulent years of her life. If Connie Stevens' first marriage to James Stacy left her scarred by violence and betrayal, her second marriage to Eddie Fisher thrust her into the center of one of Hollywood's biggest scandals of the late 1960s. Eddie Fisher was once a singing sensation who had captivated America with his romantic ballads, often compared to a young Frank Sinatra. But his personal life was even more notorious than his music. His highly publicized divorce from Debbie Reynolds to pursue Elizabeth Taylor had branded him as America's betrayer. When Connie entered Eddie's life, he had not yet fully ended his marriage with Taylor. This made their new relationship a spark for scandal, and Connie was cast in the public eye as a homewrecker, a blonde bombshell relying on beauty rather than talent. The truth, however, was more complex. Connie was a woman searching for stability after her failed first marriage, and Eddie was a charming man who knew how to indulge her and make her forget her pain. Their relationship advanced so quickly that as soon as Eddie finalized his divorce, Connie was already pregnant with their first daughter, Jolie Fisher. They married in 1967 under the glaring scrutiny of Hollywood, a wedding staged like theater, simultaneously anticipated and mocked. A year later, their second daughter, Tricia Leigh Fisher, was born, seemingly completing their family picture. But behind closed doors, the reality was far from the glossy images in magazines. Eddie Fisher was no longer at the peak of his career. He spiraled into addiction, reckless living, and relentless womanizing. Connie was left alone, time and again while he chased after shallow pleasures. The breaking point came when she walked in on Eddie with two Swedish models in their own home. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a devastating blow to the fragile trust she had tried to preserve after the collapse of her first marriage. For Connie, those years were filled with torment. On one side, two young daughters who needed love, and on the other, the humiliation of a marriage she could no longer endure. Outside the home, Hollywood made her struggle worse. Tabloids preferred to frame her as Elizabeth Taylor's rival, rather than acknowledge her artistic work. Stevens was being reduced to a scandal symbol, not a serious performer. In 1969, she filed for divorce. Barely past 30, Connie was once again facing the ruins of marriage, this time with the added weight of raising two small children alone. Many expected her to publicly expose Eddie to defend her dignity, but she chose otherwise. In later interviews, Connie still referred to Eddie as the kindest of my ex-husbands, a remarkable act of forgiveness. Perhaps it was to preserve Jolie and Tricia's image of their father, or perhaps it reflected her exhaustion after years of battling love and public opinion. Whatever the reason, that choice revealed the essence of Connie Stevens, a woman wounded and betrayed, but one who preserved her dignity through silence. From then on, she entered a new chapter, life as a single mother in chaotic Hollywood, a journey both brutal and transformative. No longer merely the sex kitten of the 1960s, she emerged as a woman who rose from wreckage to protect what truly mattered. After divorcing Eddie Fisher in 1969, Connie Stevens was forced to confront a cruel reality. Raising her two daughters, Jolie and Tricia Leigh, alone in a Hollywood full of scrutiny. Just past 30, she had barely begun to heal from the wreckage of a broken marriage before the weight of motherhood fell squarely on her shoulders in a city where the stage lights were always too blinding to reveal the exhaustion of a single mother. Late 1960s, Hollywood was no place for independent women, especially not for a star who had been branded a sex kitten. The press relentlessly stalked Connie's every move. When she worked tirelessly in Las Vegas or went on tour to earn money to support her children, the tabloids mocked her. She's too busy performing and preening to be a good mother. At the time, society's expectations were unforgiving. A woman had to choose either family or career. Connie chose both and paid the price through accusations of being a bad mother. In this climate, Joely Fisher would later recall the bitter memories of her childhood. At times, she was asked by her mother to count and monitor the pills Connie kept at home. A silent confession that Stevens had leaned on stimulants to cope with crushing pressures. For a child, being cast as her mother's watchdog was unforgettable, exposing Connie's fragility behind the glamour and leaving Joely scarred with a lifelong fear of falling into the same destructive cycles. But Connie was not someone who surrendered. Instead, she clung to her daughters by any means possible. Rather than leaving Joely and Tricia in the care of relatives, she brought them along on her tours. Their childhood unfolded backstage, in the dim lights, the hum of music, the bustle of show business. It was hardly a normal upbringing, but it was the only way Connie could both earn a living and keep her family together. Critics called this selfish, but for Connie, it was a desperate attempt to ensure her children grew up within her embrace rather than apart from her. As Joely and Tricia grew, they began to understand the complexity of their upbringing. Joely Fisher chose a career in television, making her mark with roles like Paige Clark in Ellen and Joy Stark in Till Death. She often said it was her mother's resilience during the hardest years that taught her not to fear failure. Tricia Leigh Fisher, the younger daughter, took the stage as a child, sometimes performing alongside her mother in Las Vegas. She later acted in films, Stick, Pretty Smart, Hollywood Chaos, and even tried her hand at music, releasing an album in 1990. Though her path wasn't as prominent as Joely's, Tricia always acknowledged that Connie had instilled in her the belief that art was the only way to survive in a chaotic world. Both daughters, as adults, often spoke of a turbulent childhood, long nights waiting for their mother to return from performances in noisy Vegas, endless flights with no real family vacations, and days shadowed by stress. Yet they also affirmed that Connie was their greatest influence. Imperfect, sometimes fragile, but she taught them that true strength doesn't come from avoiding storms, but from learning to live within them while holding on to love. To the public, Connie Stevens may have been just a star once consumed by scandal. But to Joely and Tricia, she was a mother who, no matter how many times she failed, never abandoned her children. It was this contradiction, both unstable and resilient, that shaped a different image of Connie Stevens. Not merely the blonde bombshell of the screen, but a woman who chose sacrifice to keep her family from completely falling apart. After 2 failed marriages and many long years as a single mother, Connie Stevens still could not escape the whirlwind of romantic rumors. In the public eye, she remained a blonde bombshell, an image that made it nearly impossible for Hollywood to separate her personal life from her career. The press constantly linked her name to famous leading men, from Dean Martin to Glenn Ford, as if every handshake or friendly conversation could be inflated into an affair. Though Connie often chose silence, these rumors made it harder for her to be recognized for her actual talent, leaving her remembered instead as the beauty on the arm of powerful men. The most sensational rumor surfaced in the late 1990s when Connie Stevens was said to have had a close relationship with Senator John McCain. The two had met through charity work for veterans, an area Connie had been devoted to for years, from her USO tours to fundraising for military families. Their shared commitment to service made them naturally close. But that closeness soon came under public scrutiny. At the time, McCain was launching his presidential campaign, and Connie's appearances alongside him at certain events fueled speculation of romance. Headlines claimed she shadowed him on the campaign trail, more devoted than the senator's own wife. Some reports even alleged that McCain frequently called her, sending sweet messages even during his declining health. Though no concrete evidence ever emerged, the story spread widely, adding yet another layer of scandal to Connie's life. She never publicly confirmed nor denied the allegations. That silence only deepened public curiosity, while giving the press free rein to spin the narrative of the actress and the politician, a storyline tailor-made for Hollywood's imagination. For Connie, it was both a chance to return to the headlines and a burden. Once again, people cared more about the company she kept than about the work she devoted to her career and her charitable causes. Business ventures and philanthropy. If the 1970s and 1980s forced Connie Stevens to struggle as a single mother in chaotic Hollywood, by the late 1980s, she had found a way to reinvent herself. No longer just a once glamorous star, Connie became a true businesswoman. In 1989, she founded Forever Spring, a natural cosmetics brand launched through the HSN shopping network. Unlike many celebrities who simply lent their names, Connie personally appeared on live television to present the products and share her own beauty routines. Her sincerity, warmth, and ability to connect with viewers helped Forever Spring quickly grow into a multi-million-dollar brand, marking a major financial breakthrough at a time when her acting career had cooled. Its very success drew legal battles. In the 1990s, her former manager, Norton Stein, sued over profit sharing, a case that underscored just how lucrative the brand had become. Beyond cosmetics, Connie opened the Connie Stevens Garden Sanctuary Day Spa in Los Angeles, a beauty and wellness retreat closely tied to her name. She also proved her savvy in real estate. In 2016, she sold her Beverly Hills estate for $17 million, solidifying her reputation not only as a screen star, but also as a shrewd investor with foresight. Alongside her business triumphs, Connie remained steadfast in her philanthropic pursuits, an area she considered an even greater legacy than any film award. She founded the Wind Feather Project, a scholarship fund supporting Native American students, opening doors to education for communities often overlooked. She also joined USO tours alongside Bob Hope, Barbara Eden, and Lee Greenwood, performing for troops stationed in Vietnam and the Middle East, helping to ease the burden of soldiers far from home. These efforts went beyond action to recognition, earning her prestigious honors: the Lady of Humanities Award from Shriners Hospital, Humanitarian of the Year from Sons of Italy in Washington, D.C., and most notably, the Founders Medal for Patriotism, awarded by the Daughters of the American Revolution in 2013. These accolades transformed Connie from a Hollywood actress into a humanitarian figure, a woman who turned the glow of her past into a sense of social duty. By this stage of her life, Connie Stevens had rewritten her own story. No longer confined to the sex kitten or blonde bombshell labels that once defined her, she stood as a testament to resilience. An artist who fell from Hollywood's spotlight but reinvented herself as a thriving entrepreneur and philanthropist, leaving a mark not only on popular culture, but also on the communities she devoted herself to serving. Health crisis and life today. In 2016, while dining at a restaurant in Los Angeles, Connie Stevens suddenly collapsed from a massive stroke. In an instant, the life of a woman once so familiar with the stage and Hollywood lights veered onto an entirely different path. She was left paralyzed on her entire left side, unable to walk or move, and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Connie remained hospitalized for 16 days, during which her family feared she might never regain consciousness or clarity again. After being discharged, she began an arduous journey of recovery. From relearning how to hold a spoon, to standing again with the help of a walker, to practicing each basic motion, step by step, everything required immense patience. Yet her health could no longer carry her far. Connie was forced to adapt to life in a wheelchair, a reality she has lived with for nearly a decade. On top of this, age brought other ailments: chronic arthritis that left her in constant pain, memory loss that gradually worsened, and fading eyesight. For someone who had built her life on presence and performance, it was a heavy blow to her pride. But instead of complaining, Connie chose optimism. She often told her daughters, "If I'm going out happy." A reminder that if the day came, she wanted to leave with joy, not despair. Since that turning point, Connie no longer resided in her luxurious Beverly Hills estate. She moved into an assisted living facility where nurses and caregivers were present 24/7. There, she was surrounded by people who understood her struggles, but most importantly, she had the constant presence of her daughters, Jolie and Tricia. They became her pillars of strength, carrying out tasks she could no longer manage on her own. By 2025, Connie Stevens had almost no involvement in public or artistic life. She lived quietly, far from Hollywood's noise, yet never faded from the memories of her fans. Her daughters occasionally updated the press and admirers. Though her body was frail, Connie still held on to her warmth, humor, and inner strength. The media now calls her a survivor icon of Golden Age Hollywood, one of the last stars to have lived through both the dazzling brilliance and the ruthless darkness of the old studio system. From her beginnings as a radiant sex kitten on screen, through scandal-ridden marriages, to her reinvention as a businesswoman, and finally as a stroke survivor, Connie became a living testament to resilience. She no longer sits in the director's chair or stands before the camera, but her presence, marked by all the highs and lows, remains a story that makes generations pause and reflect. The spotlight will always fade, but strength of spirit endures. Legacy and influence. Connie Stevens' legacy lies not only in the roles and songs that made her a 1960s icon, but also in the way she endured and reinvented herself through decades of upheaval. For television audiences, her portrayal of Cricket Blake in Hawaiian Eye was more than just entertainment. It became a symbol of a generation of young women who were independent, modern, and unafraid to live outside the mold. At a time when American television typically reduced female characters to shadows beside male leads, Connie created something fresh. A nightclub singer and amateur photographer who was witty, resourceful, and charming, helping pave the way for more multidimensional female roles in the years that followed. Music was also an integral part of her legacy. Recordings like Kooky, Lend Me Your Comb, and 16 Reasons captured the sweet innocence of early 1960s pop. Though she never reached the stature of the great divas of her era, Connie embodied the archetype of the multi-talented performer, singing, acting, and appearing on television, an approach that would later become a standard formula in Hollywood. Yet perhaps her greatest influence lay in her reinvention after the spotlight faded. When Hollywood turned its back, she did not disappear. Instead, she built Forever Spring, a pioneering cosmetics brand that marked one of the first times a Hollywood star successfully entered entrepreneurship, opening the door to the now common celebrity entrepreneur trend. She proved that a star could control her own finances and future rather than depend solely on the roles given to her. In the realm of community service, Connie left an equally enduring mark. Her USO tours with Bob Hope brought music and laughter to troops in Vietnam, the Middle East, and other front lines. She founded the Wind Feather Project to provide scholarships for Native American youth, extending her care far beyond the stage lights. Honors such as the Lady of Humanities Award, Humanitarian of the Year, and the Founders Medal for Patriotism were only formal acknowledgments of a generosity audiences had long recognized. Today, when people remember Connie Stevens, it is not just as a sex kitten or a blonde bombshell once painted by the press, but as a woman who always rose after every fall. She represents a generation of singer-actresses who braved the harshness of classic Hollywood, dared to live authentically, and constantly found ways to endure. For many middle-aged and older fans, she stands as a survivor icon of the golden era, a reminder that behind all the glitter lies a resilience that lasts far longer than fame. Connie Stevens was never just a star who lit up Hollywood screens in the 1960s. She is living proof of how fragile fame can be and how powerful human resilience truly is. From a Brooklyn girl who witnessed a murder at age 12 to the captivating Cricket Blake, from marriages scarred by heartbreak to the lonely battle of raising children in the chaos of show business, Connie experienced it all. Love, betrayal, success, collapse, and ultimately rebirth through her own strength. Today, in her twilight years, she no longer sits beneath the stage lights, but endures as a survivor icon of Golden Age Hollywood. One of the last remaining stars of a generation that witnessed both the brilliance and the unforgiving shadows of the old studio system. Her legacy is not just in film, music, or her multi-million-dollar beauty brand, but in the lessons she leaves behind. Beauty fades, fame dies, but the will to live and the strength of spirit remain. And perhaps what keeps audiences remembering her, despite every tragedy, is her unbreakable optimism. She once said, "If I'm going out happy." That was more than the declaration of a seasoned woman. It was a message for all of us to live until the very last moment with joy, dignity, and love for life. Do you think Connie Stevens deserves to be remembered not just as a blonde bombshell, but as a true symbol of resilience and reinvention? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join us for more stories of Hollywood legends.